Hi there and welcome back to the bar. Here we are and it's time for another bar chat. So the series that we're in at the moment is really looking all around this phrase, best practice. Very highly used, possibly overused phrase that is completely untangible or intangible on the basis that you can never quite get there. Best practice by definition is a superlative. It's like infinity. It's something you strive for, but you probably never get there. However, there are some lessons that we can look at around the whole striving for best practice that I think are really important. And one of them, which is really where I want to go with this chat today, is about not letting the best practice focus shift towards the process itself, or the system, or the people, but actually keeping your eye on what really matters, which is the outcome of that practice, that best practice or better practice. So don't let best practice blur focus on outcomes. Don't let best practice initiatives, whether it is getting accreditation in a certain methodology or new process work or whatever it might be, don't let that blur the focus on what value am I getting out of this implementation of new processes, and not just what value am I getting, probably far more importantly, what value is the business getting, the people that don't understand project methodology, the people that are the shareholders of the business, the board of the business, the operating board, what value are they really getting from those steps that you're putting in place? So don't let it become about the process, the system, the people. Focus on outcomes. I think a really good question to ask yourself when you're implementing a set of new processes, look at each step and say, what value will that step in the process generate for the business? Number one. And number two, what would happen if we stopped using that process step tomorrow? Would the business collapse? Would it make a big difference? Would it actually free up time? Would it release time? Look in the mirror, be honest with yourself, and just say to yourself, what would happen if we didn't do that any longer, or we stopped doing it as from tomorrow? So quite an interesting sort of example of this blurring between the focus on the process itself versus the outcomes is a client that I was working with recently, who's recently bought our software, our Perform portfolio management software, PPM tool. And when we were talking through requirements, we were talking to the head of the PMO, and the head of the PMO was basically looking at what the executive are used to receiving in terms of reports on the portfolio. When I asked to see it, it was a pack. It was a pack that thick of reports on different projects, different activities that were being produced via their enterprise-wide PPM tool, and also some of the team internally as well. The question I had to her, which is really where we focus on outcomes, is what's happening with that pack? How many of the executive, how many of the board members, how many of the people, the leadership team within the business are really reading that pack? So you've got 30, 40 projects or whatever they were in that particular pack. How many people are really taking notice, doing something with it and generating an outcome from it? The answer was, when being honest, probably virtually no one was actually engaging with the pack. So what was being produced was a sort of best practice pack of information, but no one was reading it. No engagement at all. And the danger of that is that you're delivering no additional value to the business. Now, eventually that will become visible. That will become tangible. And that's when perceptions start to matter, which is the subject of a different series that we did a couple of series ago. So, if you take that example, the thing to do is not to focus on creating the pack and how you create a really good best practice pack. Is to focus on how you get people to use information that's sitting within that pack to the advantage of the business. How do you really get executives that are sponsoring programs to take some of that information and use it to the advantage of the business, whether it is better decision making, better engagement with the program, whether it is engaging with the people around the program, the risks, helping mitigations, whatever it is, those packs should be generating an outcome. It is not about the pack, it's about the outcome. And my bar tip for the day is scrutinize all the things that you're doing within the context of best practice and really think about what outcome they're driving. Because if you can get the outcome working, forget whatever the process might be, the system might be, or the way the people work, then you'll be adding value whichever way whichever way you get there. So have a go with it. Good luck, and see you for the next bar chat.